I'm Tom Hoffman with 121 Media, and I'm here at the 2013 ForeSee Summit in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm joined today by Josh Chapman, Vice President of Operations at Cars.com. And today, Josh and I will be talking about measuring the customer relationship and talking about different aspects of that. And Josh, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thanks, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
So, Josh, I think most people are familiar with Cars.com, but can you tell us a little bit about the company for those people that aren't?
Sure. So Cars.com is a website where consumers can go online and research vehicles and then search for cars that are for sale in their area, meeting the criteria that they select. So our mission is to make the car shopping experience the best as it can be for both the consumer and for the dealers who advertise on our site.
Right. Okay, thanks. So you presented a case study this morning, and could you kind of recap for our audience the business challenge that Cars.com faced and what you were looking to try to accomplish?
Sure. So as a website, we had a very strong process for measuring feedback from our customers who were shopping the site. But our process for collecting feedback from our dealers who advertise on our site wasn't quite as strong. We only surveyed them once a year, and the data that we got back wasn't very actionable. So we put in a new process where we're doing it once a quarter, and we're looking for trending data and being able to take this data and take strategic actions based on it.
Okay, thanks. So how did you end up becoming involved with ForeSee? How did that all come about?
So this initiative started working on it more than a year ago, and I happened to be at a conference and I met Larry Freed, the CEO of ForeSee, and I was familiar with them but always associated ForeSee with tracking feedback from websites. Mm-hmm. And this was unique. This was a customer relationship I was trying to measure, but in meeting Larry, I mentioned it to him, and he said, this is something I think we could help with. And I came to this conference a year ago, got to hear what other companies were doing with ForeSee, and less than 60 days later, we had a contract.
As you began measuring and looking at the relationship with auto dealers as customers, were there any surprises that came back? What were some of the things that you found?
So far, there haven't been a lot of surprises. There were things that I think we instinctively knew from just being around for 15 years, but something that stood out was how frequently we contact our car dealers and make sure they're getting what they need from Cars.com. Had a tremendous impact, not only on their satisfaction, which we kind of knew, but also their understanding the value of the products we're providing to them, what the benefit is to them to partner with us. So that was kind of an aha moment, and it wasn't necessarily new information. It was expanding upon something that we had always assumed and knew through some historical data.
And can you also talk about some of the ways that you've been able to apply the findings and how that's translated in terms of business results and so forth?
Sure. So we have only been working with ForeSee for about 9 months. We did our first survey 9 months ago, so it's still kind of in its infancy, but we immediately were able to look at our different sales channels and how we contact our dealers and work with them and find some opportunities that we're now taking back, and we're planning to take it back to our board of directors and say we need to make strategic investments in certain markets so that we are getting in touch with our dealers more frequently, because we can see through the ForeSee data the impact it'll have on future behaviors and specifically their likeliness to do more business with us in the future. So that's the first thing. 9 months in, we already have a great story that we can take to our board, and I really can't wait to see what we have over the next 12 months.
That's great. So what was the reaction from the board? Do board members more or less buy into the use of evidence-based research? And
so our board does. We have a great board of directors who really understands the value of it. Now, we haven't shared this with them yet. That's coming a little bit later in the summer. But our senior level executives who I'm part of that group, when I first started sharing the data with them, they really embraced it. We had a couple of folks who were more accustomed to looking at a single measurement, a single number as a way to evaluate relationships, and we're digging deeper, and that's a change. But for the most part, everybody has been on board, and like I said, the fact that we're planning to take this later this summer to our board of directors, I think is a sign that our senior management, our C-level executives appreciate it and see the value in it.
Finally, Josh, if you could, for people that are thinking about different ways about trying to measure the customer relationship, can you offer them suggested starting points, things that they should be looking at or considering?
Well, I think you really have to take a step back and look at who your customers are, and I think you have to understand that while we operate in different channels, understanding the overall relationship is very important, and that that you shouldn't be looking at those as single channels. You should be trying to bring them all together to understand how your brand is viewed by your customers and your different segments of customers. Like us, we have consumers and dealers, and we need to be aware of both of those. The other thing that I would suggest is looking at the word of mouth index, which is something that ForeSee has talked about recently. We're using it. It's kind of the next evolution in Net Promoter Score. I don't subscribe to the idea that you look at one score to evaluate how well you're taking care of your customers. You need to dig deeper.
Yeah.
But the reality is, in a lot of businesses and a lot of boardrooms, there are folks who just want that one metric. And if you're going to give them that metric, we've seen it in our own business. Word of mouth is a much more accurate way to understand who promotes your brand and who's a detractor from it. And the fact that it's being measured consistently through ForeSee means you can benchmark against other companies who are also using word of mouth. And that's been a huge advantage for us, for those outliers who maybe didn't buy into the concept initially.
Yeah.
I can take that to them, and I've had a lot of success getting them on board.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing this with us, and it sounds like you're off to a great start.
We are, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing.